Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Roll-Wise Show. I'm Mike, and I'm here, as always, with Brent and Jeff. How are we doing tonight, gentlemen?
Good.
That's great. Tonight, we're going to be talking a little bit of a tangent, because lately we've been playing a lot of, I guess, let's call them OSR games, simple games, rules-lite games, minimalist games, whatever you want to say. And, I happen to run into a thread on Reddit, and someone posted what they called the Tyranny of Zero. And I wanted to kind of like dive into this ourselves, because the thread, at least the Reddit thread, kind of got a little, I don't know, it kind of got a little stuck on the idea that, the
D&D
poster
centric.
Yeah, it was like the poster referenced D&D first, and so everyone kind of dismissed the idea. And I don't know if it was necessarily engaged with the critical eye that normally Reddit takes to any subject. I don't know if that's going to get me in trouble or not, but Reddit is a very serious place.
Sure.
So let's at least engage with the argument.
It's not caustic at all. Never is there a caustic argument that happens on that particular place.
Reddit is always done in full faith and in good spirit.
People don't go there just to hate things.
Maybe, it feels like some threads. But back to the point. The argument is this. So rule zero is basically the GM can change or ignore any rule. And I think that that's kind of a fine rule. And, it's really kind of a safety net, and every game needs one. But the really tyrannical part of it is that when the rule zero becomes part of the design philosophy, and is basically saying that, like, we didn't really write this part, so you handle it on the spot, that's kind of something different. And it kind of turns into this weird, the designer is kind of doing a handoff to their unfinished work. I mean, the person wasn't mincing any words, so either will I, and calling it creative freedom. So what's really interesting about this is when you really dive into the topic, it's that it really doesn't have anything to do with how rules heavy a game is. We've run some pretty slim rule sets that felt completely fine with the rules as written, without really any need to create a rule or ignore a rule or do something like that. And then there are some games that are a little bit more dense, and you're kind of in mid session going, how the fuck does this work again? Is that supposed to be how it works? Is that should we do it that way?
Is that the real thing?
Yeah. So I think that's kind of what I wanted to explore today. And this is not a verdict on any particular game. So I don't want, if you want to jump in the comments and you want to explain games that you feel where that kind of rule zero was over, leaned on by the designer, I mean, go ahead, let us know what you guys think. That would be really cool to hear your examples of stuff that you've had to either ignore or change or whatever you did with your games. It doesn't matter. 5e, Pathfinder, let us know your stories. But I think that is it, I want to kind of discuss it. Is it a feature or is it a gap? And I kind of wanted to lead in with, us kind of discussing our own experience with a moment at the table where the rules kind of like just ran into a wall, and we had to kind of invent something on the spot, or you had to like do something at that moment that you felt should have been a rule in the system, or change it. Like there's a invent or change or ignore or something like that. So I can go last because I have maybe a couple examples recently, because I run a lot of games where I just kind of run into a wall face first and go, what the fuck did I just do?
Whether you want to marry, F, or kill those rules.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think I want to preface something, because in reading the thread, and I think I had too narrow an interpretation of what Rule Zero was, because I really kind of thought that Rule Zero for years was when the GM had to come up with stuff when something wasn't there. And then that if the GM or the group decided to change something, that was more of a house rule and less of a Rule Zero. And I don't know that it matters other than nomenclature, but it does kind of affect where I'm coming at this argument from.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know that I've ever seen a role-playing game system written that I've ever played that didn't leave a bunch of stuff up to interpretation.
Okay.
Like
Well, I think we're seeing a bit of a thing that is sort of a remnant of internet culture where people kind of expect, like, so I would say before the advent of the internet, there was not one version of D&D for any table. There was hundreds of different versions of D&D that people played because everybody had a different interpretation of the rules. And now there's this kind of idea that we should all be playing the same game. Which that's where the problem comes now, is everybody's saying, well, these rules should be what we play. Everyone should play. And before it was, well, no, that's just how we play the game. And I think that philosophical like thing is one of the things that's causing this argument. Because you didn't really have a place. You just didn't have a place to go to compare your game to another person's game. So you didn't know any different.
You couldn't interact with the authors easily.
Right.
You didn't find officially this is what we meant when we wrote that ambiguous sentence.
Right.
Or it's sort of like the case of Fallout, sort of like a 400-page document of errata.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a little different.
It's a little different.
That's maybe a writing flaw. If they're like, we have a bunch of stuff we have to correct. But no, what I always think about when I think about this is that 40K, Warhammer 40K had something to consider, and I understand it's not a role-playing game, but it's kind of a good example. Is 40K in one of the early editions had a rule where there's this army, they're called Necrons, where there's this army, whereas if you killed 50% of the army, the other person just lost. Right? They just lost. Regardless of what turn it's in, whatever, they just lost. They just phased off the table and they just lost. And I remember a guy who was a tournament organizer at the time was talking to them about it. And they said, why do you play with that rule? That rule sucks. And he's like, well, why is it in your book then? And it's like, well, you play their answer was basically, play the game that you want to play. Don't play the game as it's written. And it's like,
well, why would you write it then?
Why would you write it then? Yeah, exactly. And so there's that conflict that I think is happening a lot more, where it's like realistically, not everybody's going to play the same game every time.
No.
And I think that's fine. And that's where house rules come in. I think the problem with so I think that's one of the weird dissonance that we're getting with this internet argument. But I also do think that some game designers at this point do lean on we're going to write it this way. And if they want to do something with a rule that's incomplete, they can just make it up themselves. They can make it up themselves. And I think one argument in the Reddit thread was interesting, where he said, well, it's a matter of focus. It's like what the designers want you to focus on in the game is why some of those gaps are there. But I think at some point when it becomes, I think a lot, in my opinion, I'll throw this out there, I think there's a lot of OSR games that do this, where there's like, it's rules-lite. Well, what about void points and not rolling on the chart if you just spend them? Oh yeah, don't worry about that. You don't have to. Yeah, that's fine.
Rules is written, buddy.
Do what you want, basically. I think, and yeah, so yeah.
Well, and I think, and what's interesting to me is that, like, the idea that the GM has a lot of this control is I mean, it's really empowering for the GMs, but I think it can also be very intimidating. I mean, if I'm going to keep it to this rule zero type stuff, and I'll use a recent example. I mean, I'll go to Daggerheart and I'll, wax poetically for however you guys would like me to about the adversary creation system. It's and even Fabula Ultima had a similar problem for me, whereas it doesn't really give you a lot of meat to do that. So without a lot of play testing your stuff and basically, kind of theory crafting on your own, there wasn't a really good way to create adversaries. At least it felt to me like there were a lot of gaps in how the adversaries were done, like how powerful are abilities, where does it kind of situate and all that stuff, so that you didn't accidentally kill your players all the time. And your combats also weren't super easy. Now, anybody that's played Daggerheart a lot, I'm sure learns as they go what works and what doesn't. But it's one of those things that it's an interesting gap for a game that is really tailored to bring people into the hobby, to just kind of like have a very loose approach to it. And I feel like that's something that's kind of, I don't know if that's good GMing, but I feel like it's a definite gap in just how the game was presented.
Well, it's a gap on games that are saying we're a narrative game. That means combat. That's we don't care about tactical stuff at all. So just make it up. And that's and when there's rule, it's like, what are the rules for if this isn't part of your game?
Well, and combat rules are very heavy in Daggerheart. There's a lot that deals with how the adversaries should be interacting with the players.
Your character doing cool shit is important in Daggerheart. Not fighting something.
Your character doing cool shit while the adversary is in front of them is...
Right. If your character did cool shit and just murdered the character without them ever doing anything, I think that's fine in Daggerheart, isn't it? Basically?
It can be. I mean, if that's what you feel is good, but I feel like there's something a little missing there when you're just, especially when you're just trying to create that thing. Because, you know, and I like the idea of Daggerheart, and I like the idea of telling stories from whatever setting or whatever you like to use is. And a lot of people have gone out and created campaign frames and all that stuff. But when you think about trying to do that, you even trying to build monsters from the ground up felt a little weak because your examples were a little limiting. And maybe I'm just not creative enough. I'm sure people have had a blast doing it and they understand, they more intuitively got to it. But for my old brain that, you know, can't learn new tricks, it was a little difficult. And I felt like it wasn't.
Well, we're still used to trad games, and sometimes that makes learning like newer stuff hard sometimes because they're just written from a completely different philosophy. I think
it could be, but like Pathfinder too, I felt was easy to create balanced encounters that at least on paper.
But yeah, but that's D&D. That's a very old trad game. Like that's a very traditional RPG game. And so it harkens back to like the things that we're familiar with, like
maybe. Yeah.
So like I get that, but I do think there's a certain level of, you know, that's just not what we want. Like, I don't know. It's I have a hard time with games that are like don't tell you how to make villains. I think that's a difficult one. I agree with you.
No, that is a difficult one, and there's a lot of abstraction. Even your Pathfinder example, Mike. I know that I don't think Pathfinder is as bad as D&D is, but it's easier to balance when you're playing low level characters. And we were level 1, 2, or 3 in that campaign. Mm-hmm. If we'd have been level 14, it's much harder to create combat situations that are well balanced. I mean, that's been one of the complaints of D&D and its offshoots for decades now.
But if you ask the Pathfinder people, they would say that Pathfinder does high level stuff a lot better than D&D does, because I feel like D&D it falls apart.
It probably
really
does, because D&D does it really badly.
Well, the games. I mean, I believe the designers said that really D&D, the like core game development is like 3 to 7 or something like that. Like there's like an area that that's where the game really shines, and anything above that, you're basically. The game almost becomes completely narrative because it's kind of not feasibly designed for your characters being wandering Supermen.
And sorry, I wasn't trying to take us fully down the D&D. I can see how the comments in the thread became D&D.
It's the big one. It's the big one.
It is the big one.
But it becomes an easy reference point because a lot of role playing games are also they're because it's the first game, it's where the balancing point starts. So it's easy to say that's so if you have a hard time balancing D&D, you're probably going to have a hard time balancing other games too, in my opinion.
No, that's true. Yeah. But even I think that most games codify the things that the writers want to codify. Like they get specific on the things that they think are the strengths of the game. And then they abstract in the areas that they feel are on the periphery.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Because if you actually wrote rules for every possible interaction that could come up and every crazy thing that a player could think of, your rule books would be 48,000 pages long, and they still wouldn't contain everything.
Yeah, I think more his...
I'm sorry if that's too simplistic, but...
No, I mean, I agree with you. You can't make rules for everything. Well, you can come close. I mean, that's kind of what... that is kind of what Powered by the Apocalypse does. Is it gives you, like, that's what your moves are. Is it tries to codify everything to free you up to do creative stuff within those confines. But if you're not doing that, yeah, you get to the point where you're like, I just think that what I have a problem with is them not feeling like they finished core rules or did them like
Okay.
I get back to the dead end. I think that's more of the point of the rant on Reddit is like, it's like Dead in Space, which you played recently, and the void points. I'm going to come back to this because it's the most recent example I can think of. It feels like they didn't think about somebody just using them every time you get one and then never having them. And they only kind of did, because they were like, yeah, you just don't roll on the table if they can't roll under their void points.
Yeah, I think they were more worried about people hoarding them. I think it was a currency they wanted you to spend.
I don't think they thought about it at all. I think they were just like,
sounds cool.
Here's the rule. This is cool. You spend this meta currency. What happens if you spend it all? I guess nothing. If you don't have any, you don't do it. Because like I said, if they want you to have this the void reaction, like, it's easy. They just put in there that always roll on a roll of 1, you always fail. Like, that's all. That's all you had to put in there. Like, that is the only phrase they had to put in the rules that would have made it so you could still have bad things happen if you got void points. Like, that's all they had to do.
So this makes me think of something, is that in terms of like the difference between the GM adjudicates the issue versus the game never finished writing this part, where do you guys feel that lands? Like, is the GM adjudicating just a similar form of this rule zero, where because we always hear rulings over rules in a lot of OSR stuff,
right?
But we've played things like Mothership, and Mothership is a fairly complete game. It doesn't really leave you having to house. You don't have to house. Obviously, you can, but you don't have to house rule it. And you can have a very complete experience playing Mothership, and it gives you a lot of support as the warden to how to run the game. And what is probably like, I'll sing it praises for how it's written. Me and the rules don't necessarily mesh 100% of the time for other reasons, but just in terms of warden support and everything like that, it does a great job. But that adjudicates versus unfinished rules, where do you guys fall on that stuff? Do you think that there is a case that a complete game can still rely on that adjudication without feeling like a lot of rule zero? Or
yes, I think so.
Yeah,
I think Mothership basically does. Like, the GM still is ruling what happens basically when a rule completes or a rule is finished. There's still adjudication that happens, in the essence of telling the story, in my opinion. But I do think it's used as an excuse to make incomplete rules sometimes, or rules that have weird holes in them. And sometimes it's just because I don't think any game's perfect. First off, I don't think any game is written perfectly. I feel like you're probably going to make house rules or adjudications for your table to make the game better for your players, because your players are not going to be the same players every time. But I don't think that should happen in like a con game or something like that. Like, I think the rules need to be clear.
Like, you don't think that there should, you think that the game shouldn't have to have on the spot creation in a con situation where it's just like, you want to run the game 6 times, all 6 of those times should be relatively similar. It should be
pretty close to the same game.
It should be similar. Yeah, you can't account for the players, because you never can.
Right. You can't account for wackadoo ideas. You can't account for, we don't save the ship type stuff.
We just leave them to die. What?
Yeah. Yep. We hit him with the crowbar.
There's monsters in there, and my way of saving humanity is me throwing myself out an airlock. Exactly. It doesn't make for much of a game, but the aliens don't take over Earth today.
It seems like ending myself is the only answer. What? You just got there.
No, it's an interesting question, because I think all the games require a certain amount of adjudication, and I think the best game masters are watching the flow of the game and letting some things happen, and also putting a curb to others. If a combat is going on too long, I think there are some that find ways to get it to end interestingly. rather than letting it grind out over the next hour and a half. If it's going too fast, I think they move on and try to adjust the next time. I just to make that about combat, but a lot of the storytelling stuff, it's like, I hadn't planned that to go there, but somebody comes up with something cool and you're like, let's run with that.
I mean, I think that's the essential conceit here is like, as a GM,
it's a lot of work though.
You're making a lot of adjudication anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're running a game and you come across a rule, it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. You're just making more work for the guy running the game. And
okay,
I think that's
an excellent point.
Is when you run like again, like Death in Space, when we came across, you're like, so you just don't ever roll on that if you don't have any points? And I was like, apparently not. It's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And I was like, nope, but that's what it says, essentially. So we just never interact with this part of the game at all. Nope, apparently it's not important. Like, and I really enjoyed the game, but it was just funny. It's just funny to me that it's one of the things that's like a thing in their game, and they're just like, just ignore it if you want to. You don't have to play with this part of the game at all.
Well, and what's really fascinating about some games, and to kind of contrast the two recent games, like let's do Daggerheart and Mothership. And so Daggerheart, one of the things that people really struggled with that I've seen online, and I can't say that it's much more than just kind of like new game interest, but if you haven't really played any Powered by the Apocalypse games and you start getting into those fear tokens and you start developing that currency as a GM, it can feel a little hard to know how to spend those. And it gives you some guidance. It tells you what you can do with them, but it doesn't necessarily help you develop the tools to like, how do you use it in an effective way. That's something you kind of learn on your own, and that's a skill that you build. But what Mothership was really interesting with is that Mothership was just like, okay, well, you're going to have to decide outcomes of rolls, and you're going to have rolls that you have the player fail. You're going to have rolls that have them fail forward. You're going to have rolls that have them partially succeed and fully succeed. But the dice are only going to give you like did you fail or succeed, right? Like, and so it kind of helps you identify those meaningful moments where you can adjudicate the outcome as the GM and kind of say, well, you fail forward, and we did that, and we did that in Death in Space. You failed forward because, you get to the airlock, you can't get into the adventure. I mean, literally, you're in space, exactly. You can't get into the adventure.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
you didn't find the clue. You can no longer play the game.
Yeah, never put a crucial item behind one dice roll that is failable.
Somehow you just soft locked a tabletop role playing game.
Yeah. So you guys got to the spot. Looks nice. There's a banana peel opening, and you can't get in. What do? Well, we leave and go get a sandwich.
We apparently cry ourselves to sleep at night.
You have triggered the self-destruct of the station, and now can no longer use the airlock to get back into your ship. What do you do? I sit here and cry until the inevitable end.
Exactly. Well, I cry as we drift off into space. All right.
the void.
Yay! I won again.
Well, and so I guess, and so it is interesting because I feel like there's plenty of opportunities to explore other games when they say they didn't really finish writing that part, though. Like, I mean, because I feel like the adjudication from like dice rolls and how that plays out at your table is kind of where a lot of the GM load comes just naturally, but actually like interpreting the rules as you go through them. And I remember we tried Shadowrun 6th edition, and I know Shadowrun has had some house rule necessities, I guess I should say. But Brent, that was your system. I mean, do you have any examples from
you mean like the fact that strength didn't seem to matter anything in the 6th edition when we played it? It's like, no matter how strong you are, it doesn't do any more damage. You mean that?
I thought it was funny. You're a troll. I'm big. I was like, okay.
You're a troll. You do just as much damage swinging a sword as that elf, the sickly elf does. Which is a weird rule.
Dude, the sickly elf is amazingly strong.
Apparent, but
it's just because
it didn't matter. It didn't matter that they were strong. Like there's no mechanical advantage to having a higher strength in 6th edition at the time that we did it. I think that has maybe been changed. I haven't looked recently, but there's a lot of there's a weird rule things like what was the other one? Oh, you could summon like as many spirits as you wanted. Like or something like that.
That seems broken. Let's explore that further.
It was,
we should play.
The person we were playing with did break that. And I was like,
I remember.
So you have 24 spirits that just wander around for the next day? Yeah. Oh. Like there's a lot in the system because the system is complex. It's sort of like I'm going to use D&D as an example. It's because the system's kind of crunchy. There becomes all these things that are like, oh, well, don't abuse it because they're just, but they're out there. So they're things that people can power game. And basically if there's an option to power game, people are going to do it. Just like
some people,
just like the 5th edition. Well, we all get married and now we're all get a +1 to all of our rolls as long as we're acting as a group or whatever that spell is that video was.
Oh, that's right. That was what,
and as long as those rules are there, which are really there, I mean, let's be honest, they're there for flavor. They're there for like, they're not there to be power gamey. They're there for you to use in a role-playing sense. But sometimes when you make those things and you make rules for them, they're ripe for abuse. That's anytime.
No, that's true.
Anytime a game is complicated, that's going to happen. And I don't really have a problem with complicated games needing house rules or rule zero because the rules are there. Like you can look at the rules and you can say there are things here that I can grab onto and I make what I prefer about a crunchy system is the rules are there so I know what a ruling looks like within those rules. Like there's enough rules there to where I can say this is what should happen based on what happens in this case. The problem with the Tyranny of Rule Zero that he's talking about is those games that are like, and then so it's like when you get to one of these complicated situations, you're like, how do I adjudicate this thing, not knowing how they adjudicated their core rules? Like they didn't make a decision, so how do I make a decision now?
And it's interesting though because it feels like there are some areas that commonly get left out of books. And I'm curious what you guys think is commonly missing from games that you've either run or played in or whatever it is, because I think my favorite D&D example is like when you got to 5th edition, pricing out magic items and understanding how magic items involved themselves in the economy was just like the weirdest thing. You want a potion of healing that's like the most base level thing? 50 gold. How much are you getting for this job? 20 gold. You're saying this potion of healing is worth 2 of these incredibly dangerous life-threatening
I'm not
jobs.
supposed to take short rests or long rests too often, but the things that help me heal
Well, I mean,
are so prohibitively expensive that I couldn't possibly afford them in the first place.
I mean,
that's a design issue.
Well, I could see the philosophy behind it, just because, like, imagine if you could go to the store and buy something that just fixes you, regardless of what's wrong with you. Like that would be priceless in reality.
In reality, that's true. But we're talking about a fantastical world.
This has always been so we're getting back to D&D again, but this has always been a problem with D&D is there's a simulationist, like there's simulationist things in D&D and there's not simulationist things. Economy is a simulationist item. That's why Daggerheart says, fuck it, you get handfuls of gold. You don't get real gold. You just get handfuls.
I have a chest of gold. I'm so wealthy.
Yeah, so you can't arbitrage to find out that two towns across the river from each other have different pricing structures, and you can take advantage of them.
Right. They don't want you to care about the economy in the game. Is really what they're saying. Whereas D&D has this weird thing where it's like we kind of care about you doing math in the background. Like how much gold do you have? How many resources do you have? And like that's what makes the game hard. It's like, well, I have to adventure for a year in order to afford a healing potion. Yes. What about the cleric that's with us all the time that can heal? Should he just set up a business and just like sit in the middle of town and be like, 100 gold, I'll fix your leprosy.
He should sit at the mouth of the dungeon.
Yeah, and just heal people.
Well, he blesses you on the way in and heals you on the way out.
And I always find that funny in stories, because there are things where it's like when they have these weird outsized impacts on the economy, and then you're like, well, if they're 50 gold, what can I do to make them? And they're like, DM can figure that out.
I have a friend that
we can't possibly include potion making.
I have a friend who his mind steams anytime you start talking about how much magic would actually affect an economy. Like, because he's really thought about it. Like, he's put a lot of thought into this, and he's like, do you realize how much a cantrip that just makes your clothes clean all the time would affect the economy of a city? Like, what if you could just walk in a place and be like, and they go, and your clothes are like all of your stuff is clean.
Prestidigitation.
Prestidigitation, just clean, just make stuff clean. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And you're like, there's a pandemic, and you're like, why? Everything's clean.
Right, exactly. There's a pandemic. Why? We have guys that can cure disease. Why is anybody sick? Ever?
Well, because narratively it's important.
Yeah, you don't want to think like the simulationist economy that they have in some games is insane. Like Daggerheart, or not Daggerheart, Dragonbane trying to do it when we were like, oh, a sword is worth 100 gold or whatever. It's worth 3 times everything that we're currently carrying.
Yeah, we can't buy a flask of water because it's too expensive. But the goblin swords that we looted, we can resell for like 40
we can
or 50
now because
we're
starting a business to mug goblins, obviously.
Yeah, we don't want to kill you. We just want the swords.
That I didn't really see a good way to handle it, and so I made a bad calling in a rule 0 situation. I created a rule that was so stupid and unbalanced. And I feel like that was left out, maybe not intentionally, but it's like they just didn't expect you to go around being loot goblins, which I feel seems odd.
We were there to make money.
Seems short-sighted, really.
It seemed less deadly than following the main plot.
Well, and I think if I'm going back to it, I think that what the deal was is that they're like, oh, well, when you have an encounter that yields treasure, you get a treasure card. All the other shit at the thing is worthless. You have 50 goblin swords, worthless. And it's just like my brain, I don't think, wrapped around the idea that there's just so
but then
much.
Why did the book give us prices for that stuff?
Well, and again, like that's what I'm kind of talking about, is they kind of didn't make rules for it. So like you didn't know what to do in the moment. Like you didn't know how to make it. Like that's really what rules should do for a GM. One of the things rules should do is they should tell you how to arbitrate things within the system that is presented. If it's a super simulationist game, it needs to tell you like how you make simulationist decisions based on like think about it. Okay, the way I would say it is like if you're playing a space game and they're talking about gravity, but they don't give you any like idea about like, and they say gravity is 10 times more than Earth gravity or whatever. Like they're like, but they never tell you what that does. And somebody's like, well, I want to jump off of a building or I want to jump over this 2-foot crevice. Like you have no idea. Can they do that? I don't know. Roll something. I don't know.
With disadvantage because it sounds hard.
Yeah, what does that mean exactly? They have to tell you. They have to give you some sort of idea, some sort of rule or
and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. I like to quote from the thread where they reference Dungeon World specifically.
Okay.
Where you read the book and you feel like there's both too much and not enough at the same time.
I feel like there's modern games. There's a lot of modern games that are like that.
Yeah,
it's like, wow, there's a lot of rules in here about things that I don't know if are ever going to come up.
Like,
what was the kids game is the one that I was thinking of.
What you just set everybody on fire, Brent.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to talk about. Like the rule that's like, if you're on fire, you make more light around you. It's like, is this rule really ever going to come up? I mean, I guess.
Apparently it did in a playtest somewhere.
But, okay, I guess you're right.
Well, I mean, but at least there was a rule for it. Because
I figure I could adjudicate that. If a player's like, I'm on fire, can I see around me better? I feel like I would be like, I guess, sure. Like I don't feel like there needs to be a rule for that.
Well, it's like most fantasy games, right? You get dozens of pages of rules affecting combat, maybe hundreds of pages of rules affecting combat. And when it comes to bartering or talking in a political sense and trying to convince people of stuff, you get dozens of words and no rules or very few rules. They try to back it down to like some sort of a charisma roll.
Well, see, this is a different problem because this is a different gaming problem with stuff that involves role playing. Because what happens there is, what if the player makes a good argument, but the person making the character is really bad at it? Like, what do you? This is a situation where you have to make a decision. Like,
well, I love the GMs that say, give me a 12-minute soliloquy on how you convince them, and it's beautiful. And they're like, okay, now roll a d20.
And you're like, I rolled a 1. Yeah, and I 1. And they're like, well, they stab you.
Well, I guess, I guess they didn't like it. It seemed compelling to me, but apparently fell on deaf ears.
Well, but I think in those kind of cases,
but essentially that's what again, games like D&D do, it's a skill roll. Well, what if the player's really good? Well, that doesn't matter. It's just a skill roll.
I really got into role playing and added a lot of depth to your story, and I got punished for it because apparently the way I did my speech to these illegal smugglers is that I called his mom fat or something.
Well, but they didn't. Like, obviously, in the role playing speech, he never said that. So what did he do? I don't know. He picked his nose through it the whole time. I mean, what do you attribute this failure to when it was like, wow, that makes a ton of sense that the argument that you came up with? What do? You just
cultural differences.
Cultural differences. He looked him in the eye the entire time. They only speak
Goblin. I mean, what do you do in that sense? You
didn't have the speaking stick.
Unfortunately, they did not speak Common. It was a beautiful speech.
Yeah, it's a beautiful speech. Everybody that spoke Common understood fine, but he did not. He goes ugh, ugh, and attacks you. But what do you do? Like, what as a GM, I would be like, I'd probably just be like, yeah, it works, instead of making do a skill roll.
I think that there's a lot of GMs that if they do that, if the person makes at least a reasonable argument, they go, okay, you pass. And, it doesn't matter if their character could make that argument because their charisma is 3 because that was their dump stat. But I think
that's a lot of GMs that know how to play, like know how to GM. I don't think a new GM would all the time. I think they would just be, okay, roll for it.
No, I would definitely make you make the roll.
I mean, that's how we get here, right? That's why we're having this conversation.
Right.
Is because it happens, because it's like, and as a player you're just like, and they're like, roll your dice. Okay.
Well, so what you're saying is that it takes much more skill to navigate those kind of like ambiguous rules or outcomes. If so you have to be a higher skilled GM than say a full system that gives you all of these kind of comparative points of data, and so you would argue that that's the case.
Yeah, I would say that. I would say systems that don't tell you how to do things, or don't at least give you some like frame of reference for making a decision, are always harder. Where they're just like, here's some rules, good luck. like Troika, like your problem with Troika, like when they're like, humpback sky, galaxy, golden-hearted robots, go. Like
yeah. What do you want me to do?
What?
Anything you want.
Anything.
Is there a
This is the pile. The pile is as big as a galaxy. Clean it up.
It
Start
is limitless.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Where do I start? Up to you, man. Just go. And it's like, I don't know how to parse this. Whereas, like, if at least it's like, this is a rule we have, you can start here.
Yeah.
Versus we don't have anything here. Like even when there's a dumb rule like the void point rule in Death in Space, at least you kind of know what they were looking for because the rule's there. They didn't just go fuck it. You have these points. You can do things with them. We don't care. Roll on this table occasionally. At least it tells you when to roll on the table, which is never apparently. But we rolled this whole table. You're never going to interact with it. I hope it looks good.
Yeah,
it's very pretty on the side of the page.
Since you guys DM more than I do, right? That's well established. Do you guys think that having to make all these rulings on the fly mostly by yourself, does that contribute to burnout for GMs? It was brought up in the thread. That a few people thought that this was a big cause of burnout.
Brent, do you want to take first? I've got some thoughts brewing I could share too, but
I don't. I kind of accept it as a thing as a GM that you're going to do. It's like reffing.
Fair.
It's like reffing if you decide to be a ref in a soccer game, or
then you actually have to make calls.
Like you have to make a decision. Like you're the guy that's going to have to make a decision.
Sometimes you actually have to.
You have to kind of accept that. If
blow
you
the
don't
whistle.
like, if you don't like that, it might not be for you. Okay. So I kind of accept it. I won't play, like if I have problems with games that, like if I find a game that has this problem, I won't play it. I'll just
so you kind of control the burnout.
You control what shit you want to do.
Potential burnout. Sorry.
And if you feel like the game is not written well or incompletely written, like go to it.
Or it just doesn't agree with the style of game you want to play.
Mm-hmm. Just go to a
I think
game.
Maybe.
There's enough out there. There's enough out there that you can find a game that probably does what you want it to, or does closer to what you want it to do.
Yeah, and I think that that's entirely correct. I think that I would say it could contribute to burnout, because if you're putting all the creative onus on the GM to kind of just make up the rules as they go and all these situations that arise, I could see that being the burnout, but I haven't really experienced it myself. I think the only real problem is that it leads to consistency problems and possibly friction with the characters, is that you're kind of constantly revisiting rules that you may have adjudicated one way before, but now does it make sense to adjudicate it the same way and all that? And I know that there are people that create binders of house rules that they've had to create over the years to play at their table. And I think that, I don't really like that idea. I like the idea that you personalize the game to your table so much so that it's kind of like your game. But I also like the idea that, you just pick up a book and, you could go meet some people at the game store that, have also played it, and you can play the same game somewhat. So to Brent's point, I like the idea that, people are playing a similar game when they pull out a system, like if I pull out Powered by the Apocalypse game, even though narratively the story may go sideways depending on the group that you're with, at least the ideas and the mechanics, fire the same way through all of those.
Right. It should be consistent at your table every time. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be a game where you have to try and make shit up.
We've all played in those games. I mean, I've almost seen fist fights start.
Last
time you said that's not how it worked.
Yeah, and if you have a game that you have to make these decisions, I think your best bet is just to
well, and if you can't provide consistency for the table, then that turns into a whole different thing, because then people, there's like that whole feeling of fairness. Is it fair for your player versus another player?
Yeah, you never want it to be.
You get into these weird social dynamics that the game. I mean, the game isn't really even trying to deal with, but you, as maybe an inexperienced GM, create bad social dynamics at your table because your adjudications are, or your ability to imply that execute the rule zero just isn't great, so you need a more structured system that plays.
Well, that's what rules essentially are for, right? Like I always say, it's playing pretend with your friends, right? Well, rules stop that. Well, I shot you, Tommy. No, you didn't. Like they stop that pretend, that kids pretend.
Sure.
Where it's like, well, there's rules that we all agreed to follow in this case, so we can adjudicate that. That's what they're for. Okay. And so if they're not there, it begins like no one knows the terms. It comes down to the social contract again, as the terms become wild if there isn't an agreement.
Sure. I just had a thought. Do you think that the tyranny of rule zero comes up more often when the players or the GM try to take the game outside the scope of how it was written? Because a lot of the rules, right, are like, this is we want to play this type of game, or we want to create a rule set for this type of game. And when people try to make it do things that it wasn't really designed for, you think this comes up a lot more?
I think that's where you're probably going to find it a lot more. I mean, but I think that there's definitely a design philosophy around some games. And I think if you wanted to kind of look at the opposite argument for this, you would say that the game is designed to give you a framework where you have the freedom as the GM to author the stories with your friends, and you just have this lattice that you can kind of play within. that doesn't confine you, like, and I think that's where some people, when they get into like, fifth edition or a heavier game like that, they go, well, it tells me all this stuff I can do, and then it tells these really weird rules that I don't like, and and I wanted to do this kind of game in it, so now I have to rewrite all, and it's like, it doesn't feel right. Whereas if you get to like Powered by the Apocalypse, I really liked Monster of the Week. Honestly, I thought that was good design about how they played it, but the problem that I ran into is just my brain wasn't trained well enough to understand how the moves played.
Right. It feels, if you're an old school
Sure.
GM, it feels restrictive. It's because it's weird that it's like, oh, you can't really do anything but this list of stuff. Like I had that problem. I really had that problem.
Yeah,
like,
your character does these 3 things.
Right. What if
That's what
they want to
do.
do? What if they want to do something else that isn't here? Well, they can't essentially.
Well, you have to
But
like tie
they can.
it back to.
They can because it's in the moves. Like there is a move that probably covers that because the moves are so general. You just need to find something specific.
Yeah.
And that is a thing that takes some training as a GM who's not used to it, especially when you're used to classic games. But what's neat about that is it codifies it. Like it makes you don't have to do those weird ruling decisions because it's all basically there. Like it has the rules there,
and you just have to kind of learn how to play with it, because I feel like I feel like some of that stuff, like the if you want kind of that canvas to play in, you have the canvas, especially with Monster of the Week and other Powered by the Apocalypse games, because you're not forced to tell a certain type of story, because you have like these things that you do to accomplish your narrative goals, and it makes it easy to go through them. Now, admittedly, your first game of Monster of the Week is going to be like, I think I need to apply move X, whereas your 10th game of Monster of the Week is like, oh, I go running through the parking lot and all this, and the GM is going to react with your move, telling you how to accomplish it, right? I think the evolution is going to be there. But
well, I think really the strength of Powered by the Apocalypse is it isn't the freedom to tell whatever game you like. It's that it tells the game that it's being used for in that specific game the way that it's supposed to be used for. Like if you play a cult game with the Powered by like Cult, the newest edition of Cult is Powered by the Apocalypse. And every game you play with the moves and abilities and everything is going to feel like a cult game just because of the way that you apply the Powered by the Apocalypse framework. It supports the game that you're going to play. And I think that's what's important about rules is like, and I think this is one of the things that I think is funny. I'm going to go back to D&D for a second. That's funny is D&D is a general rule set. It's basic role playing, but no one thinks of it that way anymore because there's so much iconic, like it's Forgotten Realms or it's Dark Sun or it's whatever, like it's this thing, and it's like that's not though. Dungeons and Dragons is essentially you're supposed to be able to run any high fantasy game in it. That's what that's actually built for, and they're all it's gonna be a high fantasy game that feels like a high fantasy game, but like so people want like that's what it's for essentially, but they're always going to be that sort of game. So it supports a Dungeons and Dragons game. And I think sometimes that's where I think you're right. Whereas if you try to do other things to fit the mold of a different sort of game within that, that's where the system that's where you really feel the cracks in the system.
Yeah.
Is in there. So if you try to play, like if you use the Monster of the Week, like that rules set, and you tried to play like a post-apocalyptic game, like I don't think it would feel right, but that's because none of the moves would feel right.
I think it could. I think the archetypes would feel wrong, but that right. I think that's where
that's what I'm saying.
That's
like the archetypes would feel wrong.
I don't think the rules would feel wrong. I think
they wouldn't. The basic underlying rules would not, but that's because the basic underlying rules are made to play any game. That's why so many games use Powered by the Apocalypse as their framework now. Is they're their basic rules, sort of like basic role playing, like I said.
But the archetypes will just be.
But the archetypes will feel wrong. What you can do might feel a little weird based on like, I slay vampires. There are no vampires in this game. Oh, well, this character's useless.
You mean my extra ability to put a stake in their heart automatically is useless here?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Brent, You mean I need more than 3 skills? Kicking ass, chewing bubble gum, and cracking wise?
No, technically you don't. I don't think, depending on the game. I think you can make it. I think you can make a fine game with just those three skills.
And I'm going to go out here on a limb and say, Roll for Shoes, brilliant in its way that it's executed. I mean, you know, I weirdly enough, that is the simplest game you'll ever play. It has like 5 rules, and it works brilliantly.
One of the brilliant things about Unknown Armies First Edition was you could make a character that those were their skills. Like those were the 3 skills, because you made up your skills from a list. Like you did, or there wasn't a list. It was just like make up your skills.
Right.
How good are you at kicking ass and chewing bubble gum? Well, they're
3.
separate skills. Well, they're separate skills. I have an 80% in chewing bubble gum and a 20 in kicking ass. So I'm much better at chewing bubble gum. When would you use chewing bubble gum as a skill? General coordination. Okay.
So I think we're at the point where we'll close this out a little bit, but I have some questions for you guys. You know, from basically a play or a running standpoint. So why don't you finish this sentence for me, one of you? You guys can choose. The game I felt most supported running was blank because blank.
Do you want it, Brent, or do you want me to take it?
I think we both should answer it. You can go ahead first, because it'll take me a minute.
Of the few games that I have run, the game that I felt most comfortable running would have been D&D, and it's because I was the most familiar with the rule set.
Now, is it just
if I'm being honest,
or did they support you? Like, was it 3.5, 4.0, 4.5?
I've actually run games in AD&D 3.5, 4. I've never run a 5th edition.
As his beard grows 4 inches longer, as he's saying, I played AD&D. And
yeah, no, but that's when I first ran stuff. But I think I've read the most rules with D&D, and I think I've played the most games. Right. So I've had the most rulings, and I'm not as good as you guys. I've said that. You know what I mean? But I think I felt most comfortable doing that.
But you're familiar with it, and that's what allows you to make rulings, because you're used to making rulings with that system. So that makes sense that you would feel supported. Experience accounts for a lot.
Experience accounts for a lot.
You can fill a lot of holes in a rule set by knowing it really well. For me, I think the system that I feel the most supported is Delta Green, probably.
Okay, I like that.
Cool.
I really like the D100 systems. I think basic role playing is great. My go-to if I was just gonna make, like, if we were gonna play a game and you were like, we want to play a game and we wanted to be a Western, I would probably just use basic role playing and go from there, because you can just do whatever you want with it. And I feel like the D100 system is really easy for making rulings, because it's like you have a percentage chance to do something. Like, I have a 80% skill and shoot something. Well, you're probably going to shoot whatever you want then, and you can say that, versus like I have a +5 to my 20 is harder for me to judge. I have an idea through experience of what it is, but I'm not super good at math. Like some of my other friends who are like, well, it's 10%. It's like, I get that, but like that doesn't feel like it on a D20 sometimes. Whereas like with and I know it's all statistics and it's all essentially the same, but it doesn't feel that way to me.
Just because some people can figure it out doesn't mean everybody can.
Right.
Quickly in their head, sure.
And I think so I would say Delta Green or Unknown Armies is another good example, but that's another D100 system. I think those games are where I feel the most supported. They're also the games that they're the games that I go back to. It's like, well, what do we want to play? We want to play I want to do a Delta Green game, or games where the rules don't matter, like Over the Edge, where it's like, I don't know, I do a thing. Okay. So we're done. Like those games are easy too, because you don't have to worry about it so much.
All right. Well, I'm.
What about you? What about you? What game have you played recently that you felt most supported?
Most supported. I'm going to say that the game I felt most supported running.
What's your gaming jockstrap?
Was
wow. left field.
That is
athletic support.
Really, that is really a good way to T-ball my
like
brain
we just
out
had
of
a
the way.
streaker run across the screen.
What have I played recently? I can't even think. All I've
That's
got,
what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for.
A member of the audience is disrobed and run across the game.
So I think recent games, I would probably say, if I just go back the last 6 months, I'm gonna go with Dolmenwood. I'm sorry. I really liked how it framed everything up for play. Even though it was a simpler rule, it provided a lot of texture, a lot of context, and it gave you a lot of rules in places that I didn't expect them to be, but I think it helped like experience the journey of playing in a fairy tale-esque land. There was a lot of good with it. I mean, admittedly, there were several thousand pages of support to go with, but
I will say I felt like the rules, other than my one complaint about the void points, the rules in Death in Space I felt were really good, where it's just like roll a 12. Like, that's all you have to do. Roll a 12. It's like, it can't get much simpler than that. Roll a 12. If you want to be successful, roll a 12 unless they have 47 pounds of armor on, or something of that nature.
And truthfully, I think that simplicity, it takes that target number bullshit out of it, where you have to just kind of like arbitrate, oh, that's a 16 because I feel like it's more than average, but not as hard as hard.
Right.
Right.
Like, it takes your GM decisions a little bit out, like, of like,
okay.
Is this difficult? I guess minus. I guess it's a 15. I guess. Like, and that gets hard. That gets hard for me sometimes, where it's like I can't tell how tough things are.
Well, and so now, and I think that if we get to the next part, which is the opposite of this, the moment I felt most abandoned by a rule book was. Do you guys have any examples of that? Where like the rules just kind of like left you hanging? I have an example.
Go ahead.
I'm sure you do. I honestly, I mean, the last game that I DM'd, we did it on camera, and it was I just blanked. The Wild Sea. Yeah. I kept wanting to add wood into the title, and I'm like, it's not Wildwood. I don't know where that's even coming from.
Wood. The wood Wild Sea.
Because the Wild Sea is a little loosey-goosey in places.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's very narrative. So yeah,
it's very narrative.
There's a lot of narrative fuck it mentality in Wild Sea. There's a lot of like make a narrative decision.
And I really like the game. I really like the game, but running it, there were a couple of times where I was like, I'm just totally making shit up here. Okay, game face. Can't let him see you sweat kind of shit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't horrible. It wasn't like big things. It was little things like trying to complete the search, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, once a day, have them roll on this table. And it's like, fuck, they rolled the same fucking thing. What
do I do now?
God,
more birds. More birds.
It was one of the least interesting things you could have.
more birds. Because it's always gonna be the least interesting thing.
Yeah. I honestly felt a little let down, and I did sort of worm my way out of it. I don't know how it felt to you guys, and I'm not fishing for anything, but I
think that was great.
More ingredients. That's all I can say.
Well, the problem with kind of the problem with that is sometimes the boring thing is going to be the most likely thing to happen, because realistically,
that's true.
That would be the most likely thing to happen
in life. Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, how often do you encounter birds? When I go for my walk, I encounter birds every day.
Twice a day sometimes.
I would say I rolled on the table birds every single time I go outside. Games that I felt abandoned by. Okay, so I'm gonna precursor this. I love Over the Edge. I like the warp system, which is the original Over the Edge system, and I enjoy the new version, but I don't like the rules as much as the new version, because there's a lot of... I feel like there's a lot of that. It's a narrative game. Just do something. It's like, because there's like your main traits, and then you have weird and those side abilities, and you're like, what are those for? Over traits? Why is there question marks here on this place? What? And it's just like the character creation is just like, I don't know, make it up. And like, it's that thing where it's like, okay, well, I can't grab it. Like, it's very hard. It's like, it's like, like we can make a character, but we don't know what everything means. And according to the rules, they don't mean anything. So it doesn't matter, but it does matter, but it doesn't. Well, it matters if you think it matters. And I have a problem with that. I feel like it wasn't fleshed out enough.
Fair enough.
Over the edge. That's one system. The other one that I didn't feel abandoned, but I didn't like is the newest version of Fading Suns, which I've talked about, bitched about before, which had that weird, like, I'm holding my hand closed, pick a hand sort of mechanic, where it was like, tell me how many points you're going to spend on your dice roll without knowing how many you have to spend to be successful. Like, imagine if all of the spends in Orpheus Protocol were completely blind. Like, you had a pool of dice, and you're like, well, do you want to succeed? How much do you want to spend?
I'm gonna spend all of them. Ooh, you came up short. Or I'm gonna spend 75%.
Okay, you did it, but now you don't have any points at all for the next time you have to spend points. Like,
missed it by that much.
Yeah, so it was a weird mechanic that I didn't like at all. I usually weed those games. I usually can tell at this point in my gaming career if like I'm not going to agree with a rule set, like if they're going to cause me mental dissonance. Doesn't mean I won't try it, but I can usually tell if I'm going to have problems.
It's fair. That's fair.
How about you, Mike?
You guys should know. Inevitable. I feel like Inevitable.
Yeah, we should have seen that coming.
That's a game that I feel has a lot of fucking narrative in it. That's a lot of like, tell a story.
Well, it's like I really wanted to like it a lot more, but the presentation of it and how it runs is just like, it felt very limiting in a strange way. Like for example, lore wise, the game has a cool, rich amount of lore, and it has areas that you kind of flesh out together, that you kind of explore, and you have randomness to it and all of those kind of things. And it's really kind of cool, but it's kind of like, it has this kind of like laissez-faire, like, oh, just, discover it as you go feel to it. And then when you tell, like, for example, one of our players was like, oh, I'm going to be a knight of the realm. And you're like, oh, cool. You're one of 12 knights. Right. You're like, you're a big deal. Do you know that?
Yeah, and they don't really, they didn't really
cool.
They really didn't give enough. This particular player does like to do things a little bit differently. But like, I remember that. Well, what is the name of your gun that there's only 13 of in the entire planet?
There's only so many in the realm. It's the nameless.
It's the nameless gun. Then that's the name. Then that's what people call it, because it's a legendary weapon. But like they don't really tell you like that. Like, you have to read a lot.
Yeah, to get to this point where you're like, oh, you're one of the most important people in the realm,
in the world.
And because your cadre is so important and so legendary, literally people know you when you arrive by the cut of your jib, literally. It was just like, oh, and it really didn't feel like that's how it was explained in the beginning. It's like, oh, you're playing this game, and then it's like, you're heroes, but then it just really took a moment to kind of get, like, I had to read more lore and interpret more of what they were saying, because our first session I didn't really have that context, but by the second session I was like, oh, that's
well.
Really...
I also think one of the things Inevitable that's funny is, like, there's this idea that it's like, oh, you're heroes, but you can't really do anything.
Well, and that's the other thing, is that there's just no texture to how you're
just not gonna succeed at being a hero ever. Like, you're never going to do anything that you like.
I know that the fight was hopeless in the long run, but in the short term, it felt like we should have been able to do more than we did.
Like, but if you're failing all the time, you're not a hero. Like, you're not a hero. You're a dude. It's like, that's one of the things that I like about Delta Green. It's like, you're a normal dude dealing with stuff that's not normal and that's hard to deal with. Yeah. Well, I want to do something heroic. Like, I want to jump in front of these bullets. Okay, you're dead, because you can't just do that. Like, that's not what, like, that's not you're not a hero. Whereas Inevitable, it was like, I want to stop this from happening because I'm a hero. And it's like, okay.
Well, you get dead.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you use all your resources, It didn't work. Good job.
You found the inevitable part. Woohoo!
I sacrifice myself so the rest of the party lives. It doesn't really work that way. You get one extra. They all die. You get +1 to your roll. Oh.
Yeah, you get 1 extra dice. And I feel like it left a lot to its. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that people that can use inevitable and tell really cool stories could tell really cool stories in any mechanical setting at that point. Like, I don't think that the rules necessarily made it more interesting or tense.
Why play inevitable? If I could use any rules to tell a story in this setting that's cool, why would I use your rules?
Yeah, like I could play the Arthurian Western setting, and I could transport that to another rule system and probably feel like I would have more fun with how it plays out. I think that what they tried to do was admirable, because I like the idea that you're kind of like playing to the end, but the execution of it felt meh.
I just think it would be more fitting if you weren't heroes. Like, in the game, I just don't think you should be heroes. Like, you're 5 dudes they hired to go do an adventure. Am I a wizard? No. Am I a knight? No. You're the stall cleaner. You're the guy that takes care of the horses. Because it would make more sense. It was like, because it would make more sense. Because then if it's like, well, I want to do something, so I spend this. Like, I have this item that I got, and I'm going to use it. Oh, okay. Yeah. You do the cool thing, or don't do or you do the cool thing, but your arm falls off. That was what victories and inevitable felt like. It was like, you do the cool thing, but your eyes fell out of your skull. Oh,
well, one of our players, it was just like, oh, you did something really cool. I mean, you guys did do cool stuff. Like, I thought the thing that you did with one of the, but like one of our players was just beat
good
up.
Though. It felt terrible.
One of our players was virtually immobile by the time the game ended.
He was like,
he had taken so many wounds. Yeah. Whatever they called them.
Literally, that's what happened. I do the cool thing. Well, your eyes fell out. Good job, Mr. Wizard. You summoned those super cool wolves to defend you, but your eyes fell out of your head. Oh, cool. Well, can they stay around to guide me around then? No, you don't get anything cool that happens after the first effect. Nothing else cool happens.
You just did the thing. Congratulations. All right. Well, then I think that what we can probably do is say that, at the end of the day, I'm sorry. The other people can definitely, if they have any comments they want to throw into this thread and how you experience the tyranny of Rule Zero and all that stuff. It's just an interesting conversation, because I do feel like there's a purpose to have that kind of blank space for the GM to kind of freestyle some stuff. But I do think that it can be really bad design choice if used too liberally. Let's say.
If you have to do it all the time with a game,
yeah,
man, that's going to be hard. That's going to be
just not. It's just not a good game then. So
unless the game, and if that's the game, unless that's what you want, like the game's like, you're going to have to make a lot of rulings. They should probably tell you that though.
They should.
They should say you're going to have to use rulings in this game. Like, this is a rule set where you have to make a lot of decisions.
It's true.
And I think they should warn you, because it's going to be hard. And if you're not an experienced GM, it's probably going to be really hard.
And frustrating too. May turn you off the hobby, so. But that's our show today. If you enjoyed the Tyranny of Zero and you got to this point and you want to hear more conversations, like, subscribe, do all those things. It doesn't cost any money. So I hear people say that you can subscribe to a channel for free.
It only cost you the brain cells it took to hear us talk for an hour and a half.
Which hopefully we gave you some ideas as to how games run on your table. But we'd love to hear your comments, and if you want to jump on social media, you can talk with us there too. We'd love to just hang out with people online. What can we say? Jeff, how did they contact us outside of YouTube though?
We are at Rollwise. We are on Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and Twitter. You can also email us. We are rollwiseguys@gmail.com.
And as always, thank you for joining us. We appreciate having you here. We hope you enjoyed the episode. We definitely enjoyed talking about it. And as always, roll well, roll wise, and be safe out there, everybody. Thank you.